Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and we have started the Formula 1 2021 season in okay style, and we are going to talk about the Bahrain Grand Prix, which finished around about half an hour ago at the time of this recording. There was a lot of intrigue going into this race. It paid off, I suppose. It was still kind of a dull race, but Bahrain never really has great racing. And we have been there a lot recently, it feels. So we'll discuss all the intrigue, all the excitement, all the interesting moments that happened during the race. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I think as we went into last year's Formula 1 season, I had 30 subscribers. And this year I have like 279, I think it is. So that is a massive jump. And I hope more of you tune in to watch these reviews and share your opinions. So with that said, let's begin.
Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
We'll start with the biggest talking point, and that was Red Bull looked to have the advantage over Mercedes going into this race. There was always the risk that Mercedes was sandbagging, and that wasn't really true, but it looked to be during qualifying, because Verstappen was first in the all three practice sessions, and he got pole position, so it looked to be ball in his court, and Mercedes were chasing. That being said, Perez had an issue in qualifying. He got knocked out in the second qualifying round. He was only 11th. Fine. And that actually leads into the race where Perez had an issue before the start that led to him starting from the pit lane. And it looked to be what we expected it to be. Verstappen leading, Hamilton chasing, Bottas somewhere behind. It was actually at the first round of stops, things looked to be up. Because Hamilton came in, and you'd expect Verstappen to come in to cover him off or be just behind him. It didn't really work out like that. Verstappen decided to stay out. He was 6 seconds behind Hamilton when he finally did pit. Chased him down. Hamilton pitted again. Again, Verstappen went longer. And in the end, he was chasing Hamilton, but he couldn't catch him. I mean, he did catch him. He did overtake him. But he couldn't make it stick, and Hamilton wins again. And this was supposed to be the start of a brand new age. And it still could be. And the racing looks a lot tighter this year. But this was a strange strategy from Red Bull. To me, on paper, this strategy would only work if Perez was there to maybe get in front of Hamilton at the pit stops and hold him up a bit. Perez was nowhere near. He was down back in the field because of his bad start. So this strategy made no sense to me. It makes sense if you think you've got a lot of pace, but even after qualifying, it didn't really look like they were massive ahead. I think Red Bull and Mercedes are pretty much equal this year. I don't think Red Bull have an advantage. I think they're pretty much dead level. And it may be different at different tracks, and we may see that Red Bull have an advantage some places with Mercedes elsewhere. But it's close. And so this was like the first one-on-one fight, but it was sort of ruined by this weird Red Bull strategy that I really can't make sense of. Because, as you know, Sakir is not a great track for overtaking. Say what you want about the midfield, there were a couple of drivers who did pull off loads of overtakes. I'll get to those in a minute. But generally, it's not a great track. And this was always going to be hard for Verstappen. So he did catch Hamilton, he overtook him, and he may have ruined his tyres, and that may be why Hamilton ended up finishing ahead of him when maybe Verstappen should have won. As it was, this was two great drivers having a great race. It was the last 10 laps were the most exciting parts of the race, to be honest. And they weren't overly exciting. If it was like a hammer and tongs, tooth and nail, and they were right next to each other, overtaking each other over and over again, that's a great battle. Verstappen slowly closing in on Hamilton and then sliding past him and then wide. And then chasing him again. This wasn't the 5-star thriller that I've already seen that people are calling it. This was a okay race at best, and honestly, I'm giving it too much credit by calling it okay. Bahrain is a track. I do not like it. I've never liked the Bahrain Grand Prix. When we had that outer limits, or the outer ring of the Bahrain circuit, it was like a minute a lap, and it was different and it was interesting. There's no races like that. That was interesting. They really should have gone with that. People were very high on that race just because it was so different. And just to go back to the boring circuit that people complain about every year, it made me miss Melbourne so much. I saw one jack-off do an article about, I think he ranked the worst to best tracks on the calendar this year. And he put Melbourne behind Sakhir. I was like, are you stupid? That is insane. There's so many memorable moments from Melbourne, and I can't remember a single race from Sakhir. Honestly, this was another dull race in Bahrain. It had some intrigue, and that's it. And that intrigue played out, and we got to see, this is a good preview of what the season could be at better tracks. It's interesting with Bahrain because people have brought up the human rights issues and why Formula 1 are racing there. And I think that it is very hypocritical to keep Bahrain on the calendar when you're promoting We Race as One and all these issues, LGBT rights and race rights and every equality in all forms, and that's your part of your races, Unite as Races or whatever it's called. You're then racing in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Russia for the money. That is the reason we're there. And they're not great tracks. I hate the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix as well. It's another track where you can't do a lot of overtaking, and it's just there's never really been a good race there. Sochi in Russia, again, it's not a great track. Saudi Arabia, of course, we're yet to see, and if it's a street circuit, it might be different. It might be interesting. But, you know, we have all these campaigns they're bringing forward, and they did issue a statement on why Formula 1 is in these countries and it's their presence, and they want to push their, I don't know what they want to call it, their beliefs or their agendas onto this country. So this is how it should operate because you want Formula 1 here. The reason they're there is the money. These countries pay big money to have these Formula 1 races. They're probably the ones who pay the most money. I would love to see Bahrain off the calendar. There's so many circuits around the world we could go to. And if you want to stay in the Middle East, find another one. There's others. 23 races is probably too many anyway for Formula 1. So if you want Saudi Arabia on there, get rid of Bahrain or Abu Dhabi. As it is, we got more of these tracks coming up, and you know, I'm really not looking forward to like Sochi and Yas Marinas, that's what it's called, for various reasons. But we'll get onto the actual race, I think, because I've kind of been dodging around it. Not a lot really happened. I don't know if to go like team by team or just discuss as we go. I think we'll go team by team. Haas had a terrible weekend. Mazepin, I think everyone is quite happy to see had his issues. It wasn't a great start, and I can't really defend him. He spun twice in qualifying, and then he crashed out 2 or 3 corners into the race on his own accord, his own fault. There's just no reasoning with it in any way. This was terrible. Schumacher had a spin as well, and it was at the back the whole time. And that's where Haas, you kind of expect them to be. So this was not a good race for them. Williams, they were quiet for the most part. I didn't really even see Latifi. But Russell, he did manage to get into the midfield on a long run and then drop back after the pit stops. Finishing is good enough for them. If they can get into the midfield, that's almost perfect, I guess. Who would be next? Let's go Alpine. Alonso had a great race. He did well in qualifying. He was up there in the points for most of the race, and then he had his brake failure. That meant he didn't finish. It's a shame. He did a good, better than I expected job on his return, and that's probably a good sign for the year. Ocon didn't really do anything. Got tagged by Vettel. I don't think this is going to be a great year for Alpine. I think Alonso's going to be the one picking up the most points. Ocon really looks to be struggling, which is a shame. Alfa Romeo, Giovinazzi and Raikkonen had an okay race. They didn't really feature too much. They're sort of at the back end of the points for a while. There's nothing really, again, to say. Giovinazzi didn't crash, I suppose, and he was right behind Raikkonen. So, not a great race for Alfa Romeo, but they're quiet. You can't really say too much about them. AlphaTauri, obviously Gasly was right up there at the start. It tagged Ricciardo, lost his front wing and dropped back. Tsunoda is actually my second best driver of the day. Great debut for him. Not only scoring a couple of points, but he made some really good overtakes. I think it was the overtake on Russell where he sort of went one side then the other and got past him. That was a great move. And I think honestly, I did that top 10 Japanese drivers in Formula 1 ever. I think Yuki Tsunoda's probably already jumped up to like 6th on that list. There's a lot of, like, Sakon Yamamoto was on that list, and he was not a great driver. So, on one race, Yuki Tsunoda has already impressed. It was a fantastic job for him. Right, Aston Martin, Stroll was in the points for pretty much the whole time, but he dropped down to 10th, and Vettel struggled. They ran him long. He was on worn tyres for quite a long time, I think, and he obviously then tagged Ocon as well. He also started last because of an infringement in qualifying. This was not a great first start for Aston Martin for Vettel, but in the race he did okay. Apart from that moment with Ocon, he was sort of where you expected, I guess. But I think Vettel really needs to improve quickly. He wasn't impressive. He was... Vettel was a champion, and you expect better from a 4-time champion than what you're getting from him from the last few years, really. And this wasn't a great start for the new Aston Martin team. McLaren, or should we do Ferrari? I'll do McLaren first. Great race for them. Norris and Ricciardo both in the points. Norris 4th. Again, he is such a good driver. He is going to be... I don't think just a future race winner. I would say Lando Norris has the potential to be a champion if he can have the right car. And if McLaren can do that, it's not a bad shout, I think. Ricciardo did a good job on his debut for the team as well. I maybe expected him to be a little bit higher. But I think McLaren scoring double points and right in the midfield, that's as good as they can expect. And they beat Ferrari, so it's a fantastic result for them. Ferrari, again, much better than last year. Leclerc surprised in qualifying, getting up to 4th. He's a fantastic driver. He dropped back a bit, but both him and Sainz scored points again. And compared to Ferrari last year, how they started, this is much better. So I think Ferrari and McLaren have a lot to be happy with. Getting into the main two, Red Bull, as I said, Verstappen did a great job, but Perez is my driver of the day. A lot of overtakes, again, starting from the back of the grid and then coming forward. He does it better than anyone. If Perez had been up there, I think Verstappen would have had a better chance, because I think Perez would have been a constant annoyance to Mercedes, because I think he could fit right into that gap where if Hamilton pitted, he'd be behind him. I think Perez is better than Bottas, and he is going to finish above him this year. He needs better luck, I suppose, and if he can start 3rd or 4th and have that pace going forward, he's going to be a threat for wins as well. Mercedes, they're about where you expect them to be. They're still probably the team to beat, honestly. Bottas was 35 seconds behind the front two, which is not great. I think he had his bad stop, which dropped him 10 seconds, and he pitted again for fresh tyres to try and get the fastest lap. But overall, he didn't really push, and he wasn't really a factor in the fight for the top 2. So, once again, Bottas is kind of just there, and I'm sure he'll help Mercedes in their fight for constructors, because he will pick up points most of the season. He'll probably be on the podium at least 10 to 12 times this year. But overall, he's just not a great driver, and I think his time has definitely passed. He didn't really seem that into it, because I think it's last couple of years it's been on, can Bottas beat Hamilton? But this year it's not, it's can Verstappen stop him? So Bottas is kind of just making up the numbers. I really wish they'd put Russell in that seat and got rid of Bottas, because I think he'd have been right up there as well. But I think overall... Oh, I forgot about Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, he was a good race. He did fine. It was as a performance you would expect from Lewis Hamilton. And it kind of... right. Mercedes got the strategy right and Red Bull didn't, I think, is the main difference. And he only won by 7/10. And it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses over the season. Can Mercedes eke out and just keep going and keep winning and Red Bull still be following? Or can Red Bull catch them and overtake them? Can Red Bull be the top team again? It's been a long time. But I think Mercedes, they're still the favourites. I think they're better at developing the car than anyone. I don't know if they're the top team now. And that's the main intrigue for the whole season, is how close is it? I think they're level pegging. I think this is the most equal championship we've had since 2012. That's good for the sport, because it's better to have two teams fighting than two teammates in the same team being way ahead of everyone else. And it'll be interesting to see, as we go to other tracks, how this is going to play out. And it's an intriguing season. Bahrain was not a great opener, and I look forward to better tracks. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. Keep doing that. I think the next Formula 1 race is in like 3 weeks. But on Tuesday, I do have a Formula 2 preview that was meant to come out yesterday, but I didn't finish. So that'll be coming out on Tuesday. On Thursday, I'm going to do a video talking about the greatest racing driver of 2021 so far. And it's not who you think it is. And then at the weekend, there may be another one race wonder, or we might talk about Extreme E. I haven't decided yet. But I'll leave you with that. Remember to subscribe for that. You can come back anytime to the channel. There's loads of videos on there now. I think we've got nearly 300. So, yeah, thank you for watching and have a good one.